What's up, guys and gals? It's the Tyrant here, and welcome back to my weekly Q&A session where you guys ask the questions and I give you the answers. Before I get started, there's a few things that I wanted to say. I know I don't usually do these little monologues very much anymore, but there's a few things that I wanted to get off my chest. And the first is, I'm sure a lot of you heard about the shooting that was at YouTube headquarters this week in California. And I just want to say that that it's very tragic. I'm very happy to hear that no one was killed there at HQ, and I feel very bad for those folks, and I hope everyone there, the staff, the entire staff over there at YouTube is recovering both physically and mentally. It's certainly a terrible thing that happened, and I just want to remind everyone that I know a lot of us have been frustrated with YouTube over the last year with the whole apocalypse thing, but violence, plain and simple, is never the answer. And I just want to leave that out there. Don't even consider it. It's never worth human life. As angry as we can be sometimes, words are your best usage in situations like this. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm glad that people over there are recovering, and I do wish you a very speedy recovery over there at YouTube. And thank you for all the hard work that you do for us. On a lighter note, I wanted to say that if you've been keeping up with my YouTube posts, I did finally finish the Halo 5 Mythic walkthrough this week. Very proud of that. All 15 missions are now up on this website, so you can view them all. If you're looking to embark on the Mythic or Laser Challenge yourselves, it's all up there for you. I'm currently writing the written portion of the guide on halo.bungie.org. In fact, I have it up in a different tab, and hopefully I'll get that up there soon. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope you guys enjoy the guide. As a matter of fact, because there were a lot of skips involved with the latest and final mission, I posted a separate Mythic tips and tricks video on Wednesday to help get you through it step by step. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you find it useful. And on a final note, before we start the Q&A, for those of you who follow me on Twitter, you probably noticed a post that I tweeted the other day, and it was in regards to the Q&A itself. So ever since we started the Q&A, it's always been on a Saturday. And the main reason that I did that is because at the time, my schedule was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I had set shows for those days. So when I wanted to add the Q&A, I didn't want to replace any of those shows, and it seemed like Saturday was the best option. Then, of course, as time went on, I started posting every single day, and I kind of feel bad because I feel like I've overloaded you guys with content, and you can't keep up with it because it's just so much out there. And so going forward, I'd like to sort of revamp that. And so if you saw the post, what I would like to do going forward, I don't know exactly when I would start this. It's not going to be next week or anything like that, but it could be the next month or two. I'd actually like to move to the day of the week that the Q&A is on. And I'd like to do this for a couple of reasons, which I'll go into in a second. But right now, the post is on Twitter currently. You can vote all the way up through tomorrow. And the three choices are Monday, Friday, and don't move it. And right now, Friday's in the lead by quite a bit. So going forward, what I would like to do, and I'll sort of explain here, is go back to the Monday, Wednesday, Friday format and have one of those days be the day for the Q&A, preferably either Monday or Friday. And whatever day is picked, right now, again, Friday's in the lead, so let's just say hypothetically Friday wins, then Monday's going to go back to sort of discussion-based videos. Remember when I was posting theories about Halo 6 and talking about Halo lore and that sort of thing? I love for Mondays to go back to that. And then for Wednesdays, it's going to be gameplay days. You know, that'll be for walkthroughs and let's plays and dino fights and reviews and that sort of thing. And that's what Wednesday's going to be for. I like to go back to the 3-day format for a few reasons. One of which is I want you to be able to depend on the content that's coming out. So, you know, you have something to look forward to. It's not going to be, well, what's he going to release next? You're going to have an idea of what's coming out. And I'd like to put an actual time in there too, not just a day. So you'll have something to look forward to. I also don't want to overload you with content, as I already said. That way it's easier for you to play catch up. I know not everyone has the ability to sit down every day and watch their favorite YouTubers or their favorite content creators. And sometimes you only can do that on the weekend, and so I don't want to like overload you with content. I want you to be able to keep up with it at your own pace. And third, I'd like to really start spending more time with my own family. Working every day has kind of made that difficult, and I want to be able to do more of that. So I'm hoping this benefits everybody. Again, the poll is on Twitter. If you don't already follow me, I encourage you to. My tag is @MythicTyrant. And if you don't have Twitter, Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comment section below, what day you would like it, or what day works best for you, or just your general thoughts and comments. So we're 5 minutes in. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. If you want to, if you're not sure how to submit a question for the Q&A, it's pretty simple. You have 3 ways to do it. One is to leave it in the comment section below. The second way is to hit me up on Twitter, and the third way is if you're a patron donor, then it gives you access to our exclusive Discord. And we have a special section in there just for you to ask your Q&A questions every week. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Our first question of the week comes from Alejandro Sosa. Man, I still cannot get over how cool that name is. And Alejandro asks, Q&A, do you feel the lack of boss fights on pretty much the entire Halo franchise is something that should be changed to Tyrant? Yeah, it really depends. So I'll say that Halo doesn't need boss fights. In Halo Combat Evolved, the closest thing we had to boss fights were hunters. And really, they're not bosses so much as mini bosses. And if you knew how to actually take them down, then they're not even really that. But I felt like it was all that was needed. Boss fights in general for most video games tend to be very universe breaking. It doesn't follow the general standard rules that the rest of the game follows. You can only kill the boss a certain way when the game wants you to, and I think Halo 2 is an excellent example of that. In terms of boss fights that we've seen in the Halo franchise that I feel like worked out pretty well, even if they were a bit repetitive, the best one I've seen so far is the Warden Eternal in Halo 5. Now, even if you don't like him as a character, even if you thought that the boss fights were repetitive, I still like the way they did it. It wasn't universe breaking. You could take down the Warden whenever you wanted to, as long as you had the tools to do it. So I wouldn't mind seeing boss fights. As I've said in other Q&As, using the Grunt Goblin as a boss would be pretty cool. Basically, it's just a unit that's stronger than the other units. If Warden Eternal is to make a return in Halo 6, that could be an option, or it could be something else entirely. We've even pitched the idea of maybe the Locust from the Halo Wars universe being a potential boss fight. And some people even consider the Scarabs from Halo 3 and ODST to be boss fights. So those are all, I think, tangible options that I could see in the future if boss fights were to be a regular occurrence. So I hope that answers your question, Alejandro, and thank you very much, my friend. Our next question comes from Claude Assassin. And Claude Assassin asks, Q&A, should they get rid of the concussion rifle shots on the Phantoms and Spirits, etc.? Because I hate that annoying splash damage, and if they return to the classic shots to where it was even and still a force to be reckoned with. You know, I'm actually pretty fine with the concussion shots on Phantoms and Spirits, because when I see a Phantom or a Spirit or any sort of enemy dropship, I expect it to be formidable. I should want to take cover. I should want to run. In Halo Combat Evolved, yeah, the turret style fire that they had was, yeah, it was a pain in the butt, and it was annoying, but it wasn't really threatening. And I say this as someone, again, who's beaten most of the Halo games at this point on Mythic difficulty. So I want the ships to be somewhat of a threat and something that you have to keep an eye out for. I like the concussion shots personally, but I'm interested to see what you guys have to say in the comments below. If you had a choice, would you rather have the current shots? Would you rather have the Phantom shots in Halo 2 that were more like giant needle rounds? Or would you like to go back to the Halo Combat Evolved days? I'd love to hear in the comment section below, my friends. Our next question comes from Stacking Benjis, and Stacking Benjis asks, Q&A, do you think that Master Chief's face will ever be revealed someday? No, I don't. I think the closest that we're going to get was what we saw in Halo, or at the legendary ending of Halo 4. We got a little bit of a taste for it. But remember, the entire point of not showing the Master Chief's face was to make the player feel like he was the Chief. The Chief was supposed to be the embodiment of every player out there, not a singular character. I know that changed a little bit in Halo 4, and my guess is, based on what I saw in Halo 5, I think they're trying to move away from that. And if they are, I applaud them for it. I hope that's the direction they go. I think the way the Chief was originally supposed to be intended is the way that the Chief should be in all Halo games. So I don't support a face reveal, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. Our next question comes from Apolop Memes. That's a cool name too. And Apolop asks, Q&A, what are your thoughts on a new Halo game such as Harvest or Halo Reach 2? I don't know. What do you think? Love your vids, by the way. Well, thank you, my friend. So I think I've brought these two concepts up in previous Q&As. I'm fine with them branching out a bit, especially once the Reclaimer saga is done. I'd love to see them travel back in time in the Halo universe to make other titles that tie in with the Halo lore, but I do not want to see those titles released before Halo 6. I want 343 Industries to concentrate solely on the next major Halo installment and not to get derailed too much, similar to what happened between Halo 4 and Halo 5 when they released Halo Spartan Assault, Halo Spartan Strike, and the Master Chief Collection. So focus on one game, and then, you know, they can delve into different territory afterwards. So I hope that answers your question, my friend, and thank you for stopping by. Our next question comes from Heatmaster007, Secret Agent Heatmaster007. And Heatmaster asks, Q&A, how do you feel about the way Halo is changing and how it's accepted by the community, since it's not like the original saga, but people don't understand or completely grasp the idea that it's a new company taking a game that people wanted more of that was going to be discontinued. Keep up the good work, thanks. So he brings up an excellent point here. Keep in mind, before 343 took over, there was no intention on continuing the Halo saga. Originally, Halo 3 was supposed to be the final Halo game, and that's why it said finish the fight. And then Microsoft said, no, you've got 2 more games in your contract, so they came in with ODST and Reach. And if 343 hadn't taken over, Reach would have been the last game that we saw. Again, you can take it or leave it one way or the other. I think there are some people out there that would have been fine if Halo Reach had been the final Halo game, and there are others out there that are happy the saga is continuing. I happen to be in the latter category. I'm glad that we're seeing more Halo titles out there. Personally, story-wise, I would have been fine if Halo 4 was the last Halo game, but it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I think most people, what their complaints are is that it's not just that they're continuing the franchise in a way that they don't support, it's that it doesn't feel like the same franchise anymore, not just in terms of story, but in terms of, you know, Spartan abilities and different aspects of the game that have changed so much compared to the original trilogy. And again, it's one of those things where fun isn't something that I can define for you. It's something that you have to define for yourself. For a lot of Halo fans out there, Legacy is the only way to go. Classic movement system is classic Halo, and that is the only Halo. For others out there, they appreciate the new movement system for a number of reasons. I'm someone who actually enjoys both aspects. I like the new movement system, but I also really love the old system as well. Also, there are people who love the armor abilities in Halo Reach and Halo 4, and you know what? If that's your game, by all means, you're entitled to love that. So, for those who aren't with it, you know, the good thing is, if you are fine with them stopping at Halo Reach, that can be your mantra. You don't have to play any of the new Halo titles. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have say in future Halo titles. I'm just saying that if you don't want to continue with it, no one's making you do it. At the same time, I do think that you should voice your input for the newest Halo installments, and you should tell 343 Industries what you find most attractive in a Halo game, what makes you want to play. But make sure you do it in a constructive manner so that they can differentiate that from, I guess, some of the slop that they see out there, some of the trolling. You know, make sure that you're communicating in a way that is constructively critical and not just blasting, you know, whatever anger that you might have towards them or any resentment that you have towards the modern Halo games. Like I said, for me personally, when it comes to a lot of different video game series out there, the games evolve as more sequels come about. So it doesn't surprise me that the Halo franchise has gone the way that it has. And we've recently seen a trend where some franchises seem to be going back to the classic roots, and who knows, maybe future Halo titles will do that as well. So hopefully everyone can be happy here, but it may take a little bit of time. But that's still an excellent question, Heatmaster. Thank you, my friend. Our next question comes from Hollis Kadirli III, and Hollis asked, Mythic Tyrant Halo Q&A, in Halo 5 we were introduced to Exuberant Witness. Do you think she will be in Halo 6? If so, in what role? If not, do you think she will be killed? What role would you like her to play? I think she's going to be in Halo 6. She came off as a very, you know, bubbly, friendly assistant. Something that we haven't really seen in Halo in quite some time, especially since Cortana is no longer part of the equation. I assume that they're getting another AI to sort of fill that role. And Exuberant Witness, I mean, granted, you can't compare to Cortana. Cortana is legendary, even mythic, you might say, in the Halo saga. So, you know, obviously Cortana is going to be missed, but I can see Exuberant Witness sort of filling that role, especially since we don't know whether or not the squad system is going to make a return in Halo 6. I could see Exuberant Witness sort of serving as your assistant, you know, or your ally, or the the conduit that connects you with other Forerunner technology. So that's what I think. I think Exuberant Witness is going to be in Halo 6, and that she is going to assist the player throughout the game. Our next question comes from Arcos, and Arcos asks, Q&A, do you think that Halo 6 should have a wider variety of Promethean bosses? Going back sort of to the first question, yeah. One of the big complaints that was with the Warden Eternal is that you fought him so many times. Even though the scenarios themselves were different, I can see where it would get a little repetitive after a while. I'd love to see a variety of bosses in general, both Promethean and Covenant based, and I think that they can certainly pull it off if they're willing to let their creativity shine a little bit. So, and I've already listed earlier in this video what I thought those bosses could be. In terms of what would be a decent Promethean boss, I'm not sure, but I mean, they teased giant knights in Halo 5 Guardians. If they were glitches that you could come across, or special Easter eggs, and so that could be an option too. Or maybe a giant Promethean vehicle could serve as a boss. So that's what I'm thinking, but you guys let me know in the comments below, what would you think of for a Promethean boss other than the Warden Eternal? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Our next question comes from Nebulous Cheetah, and Nebulous Cheetah asks, Q&A, if Halo 2 had 1 extra year of development, how do you think the game would have turned as well as the rest of the series? I think it's probably safe to say for most games, if they had an extra year of development, they would have been slightly better than the released version. In Halo 2's case, I feel like it's a special situation. Prior to Halo 2's release, I thought that it was going to end up being the launch game for the Xbox 360, and had they waited a year to release it, that could have been the case. As a matter of fact, they would have had a lot more hardware to work with, and could have possibly made E3 2003 part of the game. If they had had the extra time, they may have not needed to do a to be continued with Halo 2. They could have made the game a little longer. They could have added in, online co-op, 4-player co-op at that. They could have even added a lot of the features in that were in Halo 3, like Forge and Theater Mode and whatnot. And they could have even polished the graphics a little bit more. Halo 2's graphics, were fine, but you could tell that they were a little bit too much for the engine they were running on. Personally, I think that it would have benefited a lot. But that's not what happened. And fortunately, though, they came out with Halo 3, which I absolutely adore, and Halo 3 ODST, which I feel like they made, at least in part, to make up for what they didn't release with Halo 2. So at least we got the games eventually that we sort of wanted. But yeah, I feel like with another year, or maybe even 2 years of work, Halo 2 could have been sort of an all-encompassing game, and could have probably been the definitive Halo game, to the point where they may have not even needed to release another one. They could have just kept adding on to that all the way up until now. So that's my personal theory, but you guys let me know. I mean, I know a lot of you love Halo 2, and that's perfectly fine, but would you be curious to see what Halo 2 would have looked like had there been an additional year in development, had it been the launch game for the Xbox 360? Our next question comes from Luke Skywalker II. May the Force be with you, my friend. And Luke Skywalker II asks, brilliant Q&A, Tyrant. Well, thank you. For the next one, I know you're not much of a Halo lore fan, but oh, okay, I got to differentiate this for a second. But a rather interesting piece of news came up recently. A new book written by Matt Forbeck. He wrote New Blood, the book that explains how Buck became a Spartan. That is a sequel to the critically acclaimed New Blood. Now that may not seem, now that may not seem like an important thing, right? But what is important is that it's after Halo 5. And what is even more odd is the fact that it is going to be released only a week or two after E3 this year. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it is a sign that we may be getting something about Halo 6 and E3. Do you think that is a sign that we may be getting a Halo 6 teaser at E3? Well, so I'm actually going to cover this a little bit more in the next question. I don't know. Here's the thing. Everyone knew that Halo 6 would have its first debut in E3 2017. Didn't happen. A lot of us were taken off guard because it just completely broke the typical 3-year Halo cycle, and it just kind of blew people away. It's really hard to say if it's going to mean anything. I think sometimes when you look at releases for Halo or news about Halo, sometimes you look a little bit too much into it, a little too deep into it, and so we interpret things that aren't there. I don't know what the schedule is for books that are released. And I should probably clarify, it's not that I'm not a fan of Halo lore, it's the fact that I'm not a fan of the games themselves relying too much on external lore. I love Halo's lore in general, and I read some of the older books back in the day, but I just don't have time to read the 20 some odd books that are out now, nor do I want to pay all that money to get them. In terms of the book itself, is it a coincidence? I don't know. You know, was it aligned specifically because there's going to be some sort of Halo event at E3 2018? I have no idea. When it comes to books, it's a little bit different. I don't know if the book was already finished, if they already planned on a certain release date for it. Maybe it's just the fact that it's summer, and a lot of kids are going to be out of school, and they're going to have time to sit down and read. So it could mean anything. I wouldn't read too much into the release date of the book. In terms of what we might get in terms of Halo 6. So I hope that answers your question. I hope that's not too disappointing, but again, I would say don't get your hopes up. Either way, I do hope that you enjoy the book. And our final question of the week, our star question, comes from Gospel Ghost. It's another E3 question. We actually got a few of these this time, so I narrowed it down to 2. And Gospel Ghost question is, Q&A recently on a post on Halo Waypoint, 343 writer, I'm going to leave this blank for a second, said 343 Industries will not be showing Halo 6 at E3 or Gamescom this year, and they do not feel pressured to reveal Halo 6 anytime in the near future. Do you think that this is a mistake not to show it off, even just a small teaser? So after I read this question, I actually started doing some research on this, because I wanted to have it as the star question, but I was afraid that it might be a little misleading. And basically I found 2 different posts that address this question directly. So I think that the post that you're referring to here, Gospel, is a post that was actually made in 2017 by 343 Industries. And in that post, they basically said exactly what you said, which was they weren't planning on showing Halo 6 D3 or Gamescom last year, and they said that they weren't planning on showcasing Halo 6 anytime in the near future. That is a statement that they made last year. And everyone, of course, thought they were kidding or they were teasing, and much to our shock, they weren't. We didn't get any Halo 6 information last year. However, to sort of address your point and to sort of add some to make it valid, there was a post a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago, now that I'm thinking about it, from 343. And it was a post that was covered by a number of news sites, but it was kind of a cryptic wording. And it was interpreted, and you can Google this if you want to, I think it was published in January, but it was basically, it was concluded from that post that it was being strongly implied that Halo 6 would not be coming out this year. It didn't specifically say whether or not we would be getting news for it. However, given the dry spell we went through in 2017, at this point, I'm not really discounting the fact that we may not get news for it this year. And actually, some of the articles I read that were talking about that specific post were kind of leading towards that assumption as well, that maybe we're not going to be hearing about Halo 6 in 2018. And I want to talk for a second, because there's basically a few different schools of thought about the release date for Halo 6 and the marketing campaign that's going to be associated with it. The first school of thought is that Microsoft has received a lot of flack for talking about games too early, advertising games too early, and then the game's changing so much between the time they announce it and the time that the game is released, Halo 5 being such an example. And so to that end, they're not expecting a long campaign for Halo 6. A lot of people are theorizing that it's going to be there's going to be a teaser trailer released sometime in the next couple of months, maybe at E3, and that the game will drop later this year. My personal take on that is that's probably false, and I'll say for a couple of reasons. First of all, Halo 6 is Microsoft's main primary franchise. They're not going to Cloverfield Paradox Halo 6. It's not going to suddenly drop without anyone really noticing. It's not going to drop without an extended campaign. And I say that because if they did that, the only people who would really know about it or would be able to jump on Halo 6 when it was released are the people who are closely intertwined with the Halo community. And I hate to tell you, most people who buy the Halo titles don't visit Halo Waypoint that much. I mean, there are a lot of people who do visit Waypoint, but there are a lot of people who just buy the game and play it. And so those people would be missing out if there wasn't some sort of, extensive coverage on it. And of course, having that extensive coverage is good to build hype for the game. Obviously, you don't want to overhype the game, because then you're only setting yourself up to be let down. But at the same time, you want to build up some hype for the game so that people are excited for it. People can't wait to get it. And sometimes I think you do need to have maybe a year-long campaign to have that settle in. With Halo 3, it was that way for me. When Halo 3 was first announced, I really wasn't that excited about it. I was kind of excited, but I was a little disappointed with the previous title, so I was kind of like, okay. But as they started releasing the vidocs for it, and I got to see all the new features that they were adding to it, I started getting really, really pumped up. And so when Halo 3 finally came out, I was ready, and I played the heck out of that game, and even Mythic difficulty became a staple, simply because I enjoyed the game so much and wanted to put so much time and effort into the game. So in that regard, I really do think that Halo 6 would extend from at least a slightly extended, or would benefit from a slightly extended campaign. What also should be brought to light is it's been pretty much tradition for the last several Halo games to have a beta. And so if the teaser trailer dropped in, say, E3 of this year, which is in June, if I'm not mistaken, and the game was set to release in fall of this year, that would be very little time for them to actually release a beta and then get the feedback from the beta and then make the necessary adjustments before launch. So I don't think that we're going to be seeing that this year. To that end, let's get to the second school of thought. The second school of thought is that we will be seeing a teaser trailer to Halo 6 this year, and that the game will be released sometime in 2019 with some sort of marketing campaign, maybe vidocs, maybe gameplay, something along those lines. I'm more on the side of that. I do believe that we're not that far away from Halo 6, but that seems a bit more likely. I find it very difficult to believe that they would suddenly just drop Halo 6 on us. I think that we're still going to get sort of that year-long extended campaign, that's extended marketing campaign. I think that's more likely, and since we're already sort of a year off from the typical 3-year Halo timeline or the 3-year Halo turnaround schedule, I think that's going to be the most likely case. Now, when it would be released in 2019, I don't know. They may not wait till the fall. They could release it early, just like they did Halo Wars 2. And there's a plus side to this. Keep in mind, if they choose to release it earlier in the year rather than later, they avoid a lot of the competition. Typically, the newest Call of Duty game comes out in the fall. Same with Battlefield, same with Battlefront. So I think that they would avoid a lot of competition and quite possibly bring a lot of attention back to the franchise. Again, I don't know, but it's certainly a possibility. The third school of thought is that not only are we not going to hear about Halo 6 this year, but they're not even planning on releasing it next year, meaning it could be even further off, that it could be going through development hell. Here's the thing, and I want to make this abundantly clear. I don't know when they're releasing it. I don't know if they're releasing it in 2019 or later. I would think 2019 would be a decent year for it. I will say that I want 343 Industries to take as long as they need to make the game that we want to play. And I believe in their judgment in that regard. And so if they do need a little extra time to do it, that's fine. Halo 5 did not get the best reviews from both the core Halo community as well as critics. And so if they're taking that data and saying, okay, well, let's not rely on a release date, let's rely on a finished product. If it's going to take a little extra time, then by all means let them do it. I'd rather them do that and work harder to build us a better game than to rush it out and only have half a game at launch. Having said that, I also don't think that it would be a great idea for them to take too long to do it. If we're starting to look at like a 6 or 7 year timeline between Halo 5 and Halo 6, I think that could be very damaging to the franchise, especially given the pattern that the franchise has followed so far. Keep in mind that Halo is not where it was 10 years ago. Back then, Halo didn't have a lot of competition. Back then, its biggest competition was Call of Duty, and that was still fairly new to the FPS genre, especially in comparison to the original Halo. Nowadays, you have a lot of other franchises out there, and I don't want Halo to get so lost that people start gravitating towards those other franchises, so that when Halo 6 finally does drop and they have to make a choice, okay, do I want the new Call of Duty game, do I want the new Battlefield game, or do I want the new Halo game, especially after the sour taste that Halo 5 left in a lot of people, it could really be problematic. So my thought is they're not going to push it too long. I would say the absolute latest that I could picture Halo 6 being released at this point is 2020. So that's still kind of a ways off, and even that, then I think it would be kind of dangerous to release it that far out. When you look at Halo content creators now on YouTube, a lot of those content creators are starting to move away from Halo and starting to move towards other franchises because there isn't any Halo news going on right now. And so, people are concentrating on Halo less and less. And this is partially to ensure survival of their own channels. If the Halo franchise, for whatever reason, collapses, they don't want their business to collapse with it. And that's completely understandable. So if Halo 6 is pushed too far off, they're going to lose a lot of that momentum. And so hopefully they won't do that. At the same time, once again, I do support the ideology of them taking additional time if they need it to create a better game for us. Now, how is that going to translate to Halo news this year? I honestly hope that we see something at E3 2018 or sooner. I hope that we get at least some taste of the next game so that we have something to report on, something to theorize about, something to look forward to. If we don't, then I can safely say, well, I feel like I'm inclined to say at this point that it may not look that bright for Halo in the future if it's pushed off too long. But again, I'm hoping, I do trust in 343's judgment on this. I hope that they got the right time frame down. I know it's a fine line to walk between wanting to create the perfect game while also not waiting too long to release it. So I think this is a line that they can walk. And I certainly believe that the next major Halo title is going to be a slam dunk, and I cannot wait to play it, and I can't wait to find out our first bits of information about it. So what do you guys think? Do you think we're going to start hearing about Halo 6 this year? Do you think that it could be released this year? I personally don't think so. And if not, when do you think we're going to start hearing about Halo 6, and when do you think the game is actually going to be released? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below, or feel free to hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant. A link to my Twitter feed can be found in the description below. And I do want to take the time to thank each and every one of you for stopping by today and participating in this week's Q&A. I love you guys. You're such a great crowd. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, I hope you'll consider subscribing for more content right here on MythicTyrant.com. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I'll catch you all right back here next time. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.